No, I totally agree with that. I'm all for an export-oriented industry. So actually, one of the 5 points I was beginning to, the last point was we need to move away from an import substitute economy.
Right.
So if you ask me how we can do it, one thing is I think Sri Lanka has missed the bus, is tapping into global supply chains.
Right.
You see, nowadays, if you look at trade, about 70% is supplying global value chains.
Right.
So here, if you take the example of Vietnam, one of the main reasons why they became so industrial was because Samsung moved in. So once Samsung moved in, other companies set up to supply them.
Right.
And then the snowball effect, a lot of businesses, there was skill transfer, tech transfer. A very similar thing is happening in Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
So where Apple is moving. I mean, the jobs created may be a few. I mean, it's quite large, but compared to the population, maybe few. But it's going to sort of change the entire state of Tamil Nadu better. The way they are performing is like right now, Tamil Nadu is one of the most successful industrial states in India.
Right.
Its economy is larger than or almost equal to Pakistan's economy.
Okay.
So I'm all for an export-oriented industry. For that, I think one area tap into global value chains, but we also need to liberalize our trade. So this also involves the ability to import. The example which Professor Premachandra Athukorella gives is that China, being a manufacturing superpower, to make an iPhone, imports components from 43 different countries.
Right.
So when China cannot produce an iPhone on its own with so much of resources, I think the whole mindset in Sri Lanka is that when I talk to a number of industry leaders, is that we try to manage, somehow figure out to make a product with least amount of imports. And even if we do, there are a lot of barriers. So one is that area. The other thing is also work on a lot more free trade agreements.
Okay.
So you see, for us to become an industrial nation, we need foreign direct investment. So an FDI, if you look at, let's be realistic. Sri Lanka is it was an $80 billion economy, now it's contracted. And with 22 million people, it's not a lucrative market for a large multinational company to set up to produce for the local market. So what we need is FDI that is driven towards exporting.
Right. Okay.
You don't have to have a set of Sri Lankan companies to export. Like Thailand has a very vibrant auto industry. You don't find any Thai car brands.
Right.
It's just Japanese mostly.
Right.
So that format might be one more. Right. So to answer your question, the developed world, though preaching a liberal economy, sometimes do subsidize. So at the same time, you see, is that what they say is also true, because on the other side, agreeing with the IMF in a certain aspect, do we have the fiscal space to give the subsidies?
Right.
And my thing is, I'm all for it if it is feasible.
Okay.
But if it is not, giving subsidies, you saw the losses of CPC and others, it just goes on to the fiscal deficit, which again results in higher inflation, high interest rates, higher borrowing costs.
Okay.
So back then it just comes back to bite the industries in a bigger way. So I'm all for it if they have the fiscal space.
Right.
So that would be an advantage. Yes. So speaking on that, I would say that yes, countries have, for example, the CHIPS Act and by the US, or even China with its state-owned enterprises, how a lot of countries have been trying to call it out. So the more powerful countries have been sort of like getting away with it. So, but speaking about import substitution, I agree that, the state has to push. This was the case with South Korea. Initially, they found out a few families and heavily helped them out. So this created the Samsungs and the Hyundais. But what I feel is that if a government can do that, but should be very strict. It should be like, we're going to give you all the support to get on your feet, but for a certain time, maybe 5 to 7 years. But after that, we're going to liberalize this. Otherwise, the thing is like they become so strong and they're so dominant on the domestic front that the ability to innovate goes down. So they no longer, most of the time, interested in exporting or have the ability to export because they're so comfortable within the country. And as these organizations become so powerful, they influence the government. They have very powerful lobbies. So for that, you need a very strong leader.
Right.
Somebody who can, say it like straight to them, however powerful you come, within 5 to 7 years, these restrictions are going to go off. Once you're in a very able position, you're going to have to compete with